Welcome to Consistently Hashing with Gaurav. In the last section of the video, what you saw was that we had a Golang application. We use Gin as the HTTP server, and we use Gorm as the ORM to interact with SQLite, right? So now this is a very bare bone structure, and it does not actually do anything right now, right? So let's get into a very classic use case. Let's build a blog post, right? Because that's one of the first applications that people usually build when they get started with any programming language. So let me start sharing my screen again. Awesome. Okay, so we are back to this again, right? And let me open up a quick. Yeah, let me open up a blank page. So what we'll do is we have what the application will look like is we have an app, we have blogs, and each blog can have multiple comments, and then we also have the concept of authors, and authors can make both blogs and comments, right? So this is a very basic structure that we want to have, and we also want to introduce authentication. We also want to introduce authentication and maybe authorization if we have enough time, right? So this is what we want to build. So let's get started. Now, before we get started, so there are different types of patterns that you can implement while building a web app. So the one that we will use right now, it's called MVC, which stands for Model View Controller, right? So don't get scared because of the name, right? Because it's very simple logic. There are lots of videos which kind of explain this in a lot more detail. But what this actually means is that you have model, which is the data store or the actual store or the actual object that you're storing in your application. So that's the data layer for you. Then you have the view. The view is what you want to show to your customer or what you want to represent in your API. So anything which is viewable or represented outside of your app is called a view, and a controller is the logic which connects both of these, both the model and the view. And of course they both do not exist in isolation, so there has to be some kind of business logic which you need to kind of which you need to put into the system so that it kind of makes sense. Basically, why are we building the entire app, right? It's to kind of implement a business logic on top of some kind of data, and to ensure that this data is usable by the end entity. So that's what MVC is in a nutshell. There are a lot of other patterns as well, but this is what we will kind of go with right now. So let's get started. Let's continue. Okay, awesome. So let me just come and show you the current structure of the entire app. Okay, so okay, so I'm just thinking how should we structure the app, right? We have the server that go. The server is basically is responsible for setting up the entire HTTP engine. It's basically the infrastructure that you have, right? And DB is the layer which is initializing the connection for the database. So I am not very comfortable in touching these files and having more logic in these files. So what we will do is we will create two directories inside the server folder. Let's go into that, and we'll call it models, and we'll call it controllers. So depending on the size of your app, you may not need to have this demarcation, but it's just something that I am more comfortable with, so that's what I usually do. Okay, so what did we say? Okay, blogs, authors, and authentication, right? So let's create the and I also like to create the models first, because I try to kind of define the definitions, define the relationships between the models, and then I kind of go and write the business logic. So in this case, because it's not going to be a very complicated app, right? I think we can do with just one models.go file. If the app becomes larger, then what I do is I usually segregate it into different groups of models, or however deem fit, right? But yeah, for this case, this should be fine. So let's call it models, and we'll start defining the models, right? Yeah. Okay. Blog struct. Okay, so how it works for Gorm is that you define the struct body of the struct type of the entity that you want to store in the database, right? So blog becomes blogs, as we saw. So we saw an example for the dummy model thing, right? So blog will become blogs in the database, and similarly we have something called comment. So comment will become comment, right? Now, one thing that I do, again, that may be something that is very specific, and it again depends on the scale of the app, right? So Gorm model is something that we that you have to inherit in your, or embed in your struct if you want to kind of get a few default attributes out of the box, right? If you go into the structure, it's nothing but you have ID, created at, updated and deleted at, right? Deleted at is used for soft delete, so that's what the default option is. I also have, so if I'm building a more complex app, so I try to do this. So I basically embed the model here, and let's say I want to, by default, I want the user ID who created the entire thing, right? So this comes by default, and then I replace Gorm model with base model. What this does is that if you have a few entities that you want to be present across all the models in the system, this makes it way more helpful. And you can also override certain applications, right? For example, ID. If you go to Gorm model, ID, there is no JSON representation of ID. So what happens is that if you represent it in JSON in Golang, then your JSON also comes with an uppercase ID, which I don't like at all, right? So what I do is I make it uint JSON. Oh, let me just copy that. And just add a JSON key as well. So this works perfectly fine, right? And okay, there's one more entity that you can add. So tags is also something which is very commonly used in both the blog and the post, and so we'll try to kind of keep it as it is, right? Cool. So these are the base structure of. Few more entity elements to the content, and you don't need the time because it's already there in the Gorm model thing. What else do we need, right? It's a pretty simple thing, so should be fine. Now you want the relationships. You want to associate which comment belongs to which blog, or which blog was it posted on. So you can have this via blog ID, and you can also do it this way as well. So what this does is that you have you are establishing a relationship between both the objects. So Gorm is smart enough to kind of detect that, and that's all it requires. Similarly, we'll also do it for comments. Oops. You can also do it for commands. So commands can just be commands, right? So this is the basic structure of entities that we have. Oh, I forgot to add one thing. We have a user. So I was talking about how how certain models can be a different file itself, right? Let's take the case of user. Now user has a lot of functionalities by default. For example, authentication, logins. So you basically have a lot of logic that you can associate with the user. Now you can make that into a helper and put it somewhere else, but sometimes I am also inclined to kind of put that I kind of put that in the same model logic as well, if it's kind of associated with each other, right? But in this case, because I don't know how complex the authentication logic is going to be, so we'll kind of keep it as it is. So I don't want a lot of entity. Yeah, so I think the name and name and email is sufficient for now, and we just need to add the associations. And blogs. Cool. I don't think we have any other model, right? So once you define these models, you also have to associate them with a migration tool. Now, as I showed before, Gorm already comes with something called auto migrate, which you can use to migrate all your newly created entities by default. So we'll do that. Let's create user, because that's the one which is going to be used in a lot of places. And then we have comment, right? And this won't work. Why? Because this is in a different entity entirely. Yes, so it was able to import it properly. So this is in a different module already. So we have to use it this way. Cool. Now if I okay, so I think what I need to do is I need to create an interface and then oh, sorry, I misread the there is an extra curly brace. Awesome, it started. So what we'll do is we'll just open the SQLite file and just check. We'll just check that the tables are there. Yeah, awesome. And let's do a describe. I don't know if this will work. SQLite describe table. Okay, so they call it schema here. Yeah, so I think we have everything properly. So we have ID, we have created that, updated that, all the shenanigans, and we have our defined name, and it has yeah, so you can see that the foreign key association has been set up, and awesome.
Let's do it for comments. Cool. I think everything looks okay. So this means that your models are ready, and you can basically start using them in the application code now.